Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is News Up Extra on Silverbird News 24. The campaign season has set up in full glare, and citizens are expected, just as the candidates. A lot of people look up to only candidates for the election, expect so much from them, but forgetting that the citizens also have a huge role to play. In fact, they decide the candidates that would emerge in elections. Okay, so we have a public affairs analyst here with us, Aisha Salisu. She will be talking to us about citizens' participation in election campaigns. You're welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, okay. So, I would like to ask citizens, how are we expected to behave during campaigns?
Okay, that's a very good question. And I want to start by saying with the advent of social media and how it's an instrumental tool in today's politics, we find that a lot of people, that has been the space where a lot of political engagements can be taking place, and especially in the comfort of your homes. So I like to touch on there because there are lots of things I see that, do not go well with people along that space. We have people who have become trolls and keypad warriors, using of strong and vile languages, setting ethnical slurs, and sometimes religious bigotry, which I think that citizens should know that you have to be very democratic, and if you lose that line, you become undemocratic in getting a democratic process. So we know that freedom of speech is very key, but I think Nigerians also need to understand the fact that there is a clear line between having freedom of speech and also stamping wrongly on it. So I think we need a lot of education in that space. We need to understand that you can sell your candidate without using strong words and vile languages and bringing each other down. So for me, I think that is basically my concern.
So from your narration, from your explanation, do you think Nigerians are ready? Are we ready ahead of 2023? I mean, the citizens.
I think we are. You know why I think we are? The fact that people are engaging, but where my concern is the rules of engagement. For me, talking about politics is very key. And I think we're beginning to get aware. We're a young democracy, but I think the role we need to play is on how we talk about, how we have these conversations. Conversations are very key. Conversations, it was from talking, it was from conversations, that spurred the French Revolution, from women talking in their kitchens, in their houses. We're having that. But for me, I don't want us to breed a culture where we have too much vile and divisiveness in politics is what I think we need to die. But the conversations are key and we're having them. So I can say that we're ready because people are talking about it. It shows that we're concerned about who we want to lead us. But it's the way the conversation is being steered that is my concern. Yeah.
All right. There was a certain time that there was this rage and debate about the regulation of social media, and it's because of the things that people have been using it to do. In climes like China and some other, developed places in the world, they actually own their social media. They regulate their own social media, and they've been able to curtail some certain thing. Do you think it should be, also applicable here?
To a certain extent, I don't think we should regulate in total, but people should be aware that there are laws that, guide civil conversations like that, because that will mean gagging people. And when you gag people, then you're also interfering with a democratic process. But people should know that they are accountable for things that they say. So maybe I'll go by the famous India's quote that says, freedom of speech, there's freedom of speech, but the freedom after you speak is not guaranteed. So people need to actually know that, you know, there are consequences for your speech, for things that you say, for words that you say. So you know that you're going to be held accountable, so that people don't come and throw out slurs and things that aren't factual. Yeah.
Let's look at previous elections. Most times we have voter apathy. We have people not wanting to come out to vote. From the look of things, do you envisage that we have more people, particularly, you know, ahead of this 2023 election, willing and eager? Do you foresee large turnout of citizens coming out to participate in the election?
Well, that would also be a statistics, because I like using statistics and numbers, and INEC will be in the right position. But from what I could see, you know, in, you know, the internet space and in the news, especially when there was a huge rush before PVCs were being, you know, there are two different things: being politically active and getting out there to actually cast your vote. That is what matters. Trolling and being a keyboard warrior does not affect the polls. It is you're going out there to actually cast that vote that is actually key. But I know that in recent times, because from what we've seen in the media, we've seen a high flux of people going and scavenging to actually get, you know, their PVCs. And there are lots of conversations towards that line, because we, you know, prior to now, we know people talk, but they actually do not walk the talk in terms of casting their votes. So I could see a lot of conversation around that space, and people are getting more aware about, you know, actually coming out to vote. And maybe in the near future, I'm thinking maybe we should have a very more conducive climb where people can even register on the day of elections. I'm sure we're going to get there someday, you know, and then you know, citizens are now being aware of their power. You're the most powerful person. You know, citizens are actually the people. They need to also let politicians know that the government is for us and not for them. And the only way you can show that is first by voting, then making them accountable.
What should they be looking out for? Yes, you come to vote for me. You're the presidential candidate, gubernatorial candidate. What should citizens be looking out for ahead of the 2023 elections, as campaign, you know, is already ongoing?
I will start by what people shouldn't be looking out for.
Okay.
I want to say that people shouldn't vote according to ethnic or religious lines. With that, you've missed the mark, right? You know, the thing is, we're diverse, and our needs are also scattered across the different geopolitical zones in Nigeria. So what will be key and would want me to choose someone as my presidential candidate might be different from what you see. But I know that our struggles in Nigeria are quite the same in a way. We actually want good governance. So these are the things and these are the qualities. You know, look at the antecedents of these people. What are they saying? What are the changes that they're going to bring? What have they also done? What's their track record? These are the things. Are they in line with your goals? Are they in line with what exactly you want? Because that's why I chose to answer that question that way, because what might get me to, you know, vote for somebody might be different push for you. So I start by saying, if we go through ethnic or religious lines, you have missed the mark and you have lost it all completely, because those aren't the qualities to look for, or those aren't the lines that good governance come into.
So what are the lines?
The lines are like, okay, now I want to, if you want to push me to tell me what I want, and like I say, I want to be very democratic. I think I want, for me, what I would really look for is the antecedents. What are the things? What is the history behind that candidate? You know, what is his agenda? What do they want to bring to the table? What change are they offering for Nigerians? We all quite know where, and you have to look, because if you want to become a president, you have to understand how the climb is. What are the needs and aspirations of these people across these geopolitical zones? So I don't think I want to be selfish as a citizen. I want a leader that embodies everything. I don't want a leader for me. So in your manifesto, I want to know what covers not just me, but my brothers, my sisters across the geopolitical zones in Nigeria, from the man in the urban area to the last man standing in the rural area. You have to have their hopes and dreams encompassed, you know, in your plan and action. For me, if you want good governance, it means uplifting every Nigerian. And I say every Nigerian, irrespective of their tribe, religion, culture, and geopolitical zone. So for me, I'm looking for that candidate who has that goal to actually bring people out of these challenges Nigerians are facing across the country.
Okay, sadly, not every Nigerian is thinking this way. You're thinking about your neighbor, you're thinking about people in the rural areas, but most of them are thinking me first, me first. That's actually why vote buying is still ongoing in a lot of places, and you'll see someone who will say, if this person should come on board, they'll have so thing for me, they have so thing for so person. So what are you going to say to those who still believe in vote buying and those who still believe in when this person gets there, it would give me and my family so positions?
I think, first of all, you're starting a good job here in this studio by having this conversation, and that is citizen education. You're enlightening them. You're making them understand that, you know, governorship isn't about just you. It's about the next person. It's a collective aim. So I think these conversations that you're having are very key. You know, the impact that just this conversation we're having this morning is going to go a long way for the viewers listening. It will change the dynamics of things. So I want to say that the media and journalism are also doing well in that. And I think that, you know, you should keep on having that conversations, you know, kudos to you people. And
Thank you.
Another thing that is important is to have civic education. Look, that is very key. You need to catch them young. Start from school. Let children know at tender ages what government is all about, what their role in governance is all about, what are expected of them, and also sow that love for unity from childhood. I think there's a lot of job the National Orientation Agency needs to do in Nigeria, and I don't think they're doing much of that in that regard, quite frankly. So I think there has to be a lot of civic education amongst youngsters, because, you know, politics has now been bedeviled to be seen as something nasty, dirty, rugged for people without integrity. And that is a tactical way that politicians actually use to make people not to be engaged. So I think when there is a strong civic education from childhood, you tell a child what it is about governance, how he needs to relate, and how our togetherness and unity prospers nothing but goodwill for all. So I think that is very key. And we also need to bring education about government into social lives. Make it comfortable for people to actually discuss governance and educate them. So I think this responsibility lies more on the bulk of the National Orientation Agency, because that's the agency about doing that. But I think even as, you know, parents too, they should also take time to actually educate children, and schools should actually imbibe that in their curriculum, so that from childhood you actually know what is expected of you and what will foster national unity and cohesion. Without fostering that, right, it will have to be the selfish ideology of me first. Let me, you know, put it in my pocket, but not knowing that once you get that, what happens to the generation behind, what happens to your community, and enriching your pocket doesn't even make you rich, because from that pocket of yours, you have to take care of a lot of want from your community, family, and all that. But if you have a system that is even working, embezzling will not even come to mind, you know. And if you see that if a lot of things are set in place in Nigeria, it will take away that greed. It's the lack of most of all these amenities, no much guarantee of what tomorrow holds. That's really what drives people. And then we have to also speak against the culture about embezzlement, so that people do not know that embezzling is something that needs to be glorified, you know. So these kind of things have to come from our social lives, through schools, from education, and all of that is systemic. And every one of us, not just you as media practitioners, but I think that Nigerians also should also take that, because it's very important. We need to take charge of how our tomorrow, you know, unfolds.
Okay, all right. I'd like to ask concerning issue-based campaigns, and we're going to take a video. We're going to play a video that will depict issue-based. Citizens, a lot of citizens go petty, all in the name of, you know, trying to campaign and trying to sell their candidates. You talked about the role of the federal government, you talk about the role of CSOs and parents. Do you think these candidates that they are, vying and vouching for also have a role to call their followers to order?
Yes, correct. Okay, should I answer?
Yes,
I was
please.
thinking you were going to. Of course, the bulk, right, lies on the candidate, because how you sell your candidate rubs off on the candidate. And, you need to keep up conversation on how you're being sold. And I feel that if candidates don't call out their supporters on how they sell them, then they're complacent, right? So I think they owe it to every Nigerian and themselves, because it is what drives or what propels you to that seat that would continue, and it will set a scene. If that is not being checkmate, the next candidate will also use that as a strategy, but we are creating more chaos, and it will be difficult to unfold and break, and it's creating another cankerworm. So for me, I think that is actually primary. If your candidates are selling you in lines that do not go well with your goals and aspirations and beliefs, detach yourselves from them, correct them, and show them how to actually do this in a politically correct way.
All right, interesting. Okay, so a lot happened yesterday in the political atmosphere, and the major one is between Governor Nyesom Wike, and an embattled national chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Dr. Iyorchia Ayu. There were exchange of words between the both of them yesterday. So we'll take a quick look at the reports and then we'll talk about it.
I have fully briefed the BOT that one of our governors made a contribution of 100 million and I explained to them that we hired an appropriate place in Asokoro. We have renovated it and we have furnished it. 2-3 days ago, we went there to inspect the place. And the National Working Committee decided that even before commissioning, we should invite the governor in question to come and inspect what we have done with his contribution. I want to make it clear that at no time did I, as the national chairman of this party, any 1 billion naira from anybody. To call on all party leaders and persons close to them to desist forthwith from making further military press interviews. The chairman of the PDP Governors Forum to convene a meeting of the PDP Governors Forum without further delay, to call on all leaders of the party to match words with action, where commitments are made to unconditionally fulfill same.
That was a response from the national chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Dr. Iyorchia Ayu, on accusations from the Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike that he took 1 billion naira and 100 million naira respectively from governors in the party. So we'll also take a quick look at oil theft. Oil theft has been ongoing for. Are we not going to take the report?
No, we'll look at that probably after the break. But
okay. Okay, all right. I was thinking we'll look at the reports back to back and then we'll talk about it, but it's no problem. So we could just go into it. A lot of accusations like that. We have the ones in the ADC, we have the ones in PDP, we have the ones in even Labour Party. the PCC list just came out, and there have been accusations that it has been dominated by a particular tribe, and then there are some misplacement of names and all that. Do you think that this wrangling and these things are things that we citizens should also consider and say, okay, these people are not setting good examples, or it's just normal, we could vote for them, give them a chance and see if they will do well?
But we know an anomaly when we see one. And I think all these things too are also indicative of participation of citizens in politics. So it just doesn't stop at voting. So all these things are also coming up because you and I, everyone is asking questions, is talking. So I think it's important to keep on talking, questioning, having conversations. It'll also be unraveled, and that will also show the content and character of who people and persons you're willing to vote, if they're in lines with your goals and principles, because I believe that their character will be a reflection of what they'll do in offices. And that's my personal belief. So for me, I think that these things are very key. They're key elements in decision making and choosing who our leaders will be. So for me, I think it's a good one at showing who they really are, and it shows or gives us indication of who to pick and who not to pick.
Let's talk about the not too young to run bill. It appears young persons are not really coming out much for political offices. Let's talk about presidential election. Yeah, we know the form was quite too much. It was actually had that it was initiated so that we don't have much people rushing into to run for that position. Yeah, gubernatorial and the rest of it all. Citizen participation, not too young to run bill. How much would you say that we have younger ones coming into politics ahead of the 2023 elections?
I think having that bill itself is very key. At least there's a bill like that. But the thing is, what I want to tell youngsters is power is not given, it has to be taken. It's not just having the bill, it's also having the willpower and the enthusiasm to actually play in that spaces. And I see that, I can understand, you see that a lot of youths too are actually tired. They already feel defeated because of, we know how past histories have been and how it's been difficult for youngsters to actually get into position of power, and how, the political climate is actually shaped. And sadly, to an extent, and this is my own personal belief, I might be wrong, but there are a lot of young people who don't even believe in youngsters like themselves. So I think that for the young people, it's not just about the bill, it's also about them pushing and actually going to take it. Like I said earlier, power is not given, it has to be taken. So we need to, you need to have youth first participating actively in those spaces before you can now think of them getting or vying for political offices or spaces. It's not just because you're youth, you will just be given, So we have to actually take part actively. Let's get behind the keyboards and trolling and actually be out there. If you can actually win, and I say it, if you can actually win and throw arguments in internet spaces, I think that is also a tool to also sell youngsters. It's quite strange how a lot of us feel that, we do not believe in older politicians, but how many of us are actually coming out and pushing for youngsters to actually vie for these spaces? So it's just like
the money factor. Don't you think it's an obstacle? Finances.
Can I tell you this?
Yeah.
And I just don't want. We found big-time politicians coming to internet spaces where youngsters are even more than any other person. Spaces where you find these Gen Zs to come and raise funds, and they actually raise those funds. If they can do that, what's stopping you? I don't know if you get what I mean. So let us not just use, finances. I believe that when you have a dream and you sell it and people buy it, getting the financing would come. It's not even, for me, that is not even the problem. The first fundamental problem is to find someone who is willing, who has the capacity, and who has the tenacity and willpower to run and to make things happen, not just because you're youth. He's young, that's why. I don't think that is just you have to form a character as a youth yourself to actually find you sellable for other political aspirants. So for me, I think that we need to get beyond just talking. The youth actually have to take charge and get active participation.
Okay, so I had a conversation with someone one day, and the person said that there are youths in governments in different places of, positions in government. He actually mentioned the names of those people, but I wouldn't want to mention them. In ministries, heading ministries, departments, and agencies, and even youth lawmakers in the National Assembly, and give examples of the arrogance that they've displayed. And he said, these are youths that we've tested and we've put in places. How well have they done? So it now brings me back to the question, we're canvassing for youth. How well do you think this youth will represent the country?
The thing is, you don't use a small fraction to judge a large number. Although that is the sampling method or research methodology, but thing is, there are thousands, and that's where we're missing the mark. Just because you're you does not automatically, makes you that viable candidate who wants to bring the acclaimed change for youth themselves. So you might have a youth that has an ideology that, doesn't go in line with youth participation, itself. It might just be, oh, well, there's also an opportunity for me, especially, okay, for example, we have the not young to run bill, and somebody uses that as an opportunity for his own selfish interest to actually get in there without actually thinking. So for me, I think there has to be a collective, youths have to actually come together, put the work, get those candidates that you think are sellable. It's not just because you're young. So I don't want to keep on repeating what I'm saying, but I wouldn't use, that small fraction of people to judge a large number who actually want to effect a change. And the reason or how they got into those spaces might not go in line with the goals and aspiration of the larger numbers. So they probably went there for their own selfish interest or continuation of a particular agenda. So, to each their own. So for me, I think that is not a good, yardstick to use for that measure.
Okay, so there's this recent trend. We're talking about it earlier, Japa. A lot of our youths now do not believe in the government again. They've lost hope. A lot of them are now opting, to travel out of the country. And meanwhile, it has been said that the big men, they would go send their children abroad, and the children will come back into the country and rule. Meanwhile, the children of the middle class are, opting out to Japa. So for people who have really lost hope in the country and they're thinking it can't work anymore, and they are opting, to go search for greener pasture, do you have any word for that?
The last thing, and that's the most deadliest thing, is hopelessness. And sadly, losing hope means that you're not even willing to try. I believe that if you've checked through history and how a lot of change have come about, it took a lot of work, tenacity, sacrifices, sweat, and hard work to let that, and sacrifices. And I think a lot of people too are tired. You hear, I don't want to sacrifice where there won't be dividend. But the thing is, you don't expect immediate results. So for me, I want to tell them that you're still creating and making it easy for the classes and things that you think have brought Nigeria to a point you don't like. So for you to actually change those things that you don't like, you can't call on the person you don't like to fix it. My word for them is to make Nigeria great again. It's you who wants it to be great and how great you want it. That's how you can fix it. But calling someone who you feel and leaving the mantle to someone who you feel to fix it just spells doom, and you want status quo to keep continuing. So I believe that I am very hopeful, and I think that these conversations that we're having are great. Citizens are beginning to get more aware. The social media is also helping. You know, today you hear news about things that are happening in a local government far distance that even the next person might not even know. Something might happen somewhere in Onitsha, and I would be in Abuja and I would know, and I will call someone and she would say, oh, I've not heard about it. So I feel that we should take charge of this tool that has actually made youth feel empowered, in as much as we should start somewhere. And I think social media is right, where you don't need a lot of funding. That data that you're using to waste to catch crews, to talk about your jackpot story, you can also use it to set and change the political climate. And like I said, the French Revolution started with people, women talking from kitchen and complaining, you know, about cake and bread. And that's how the whole thing spurred. So I don't think youth should be hopeless. Find a way to engage in a very civil and democratic manner, and engage in politics, no matter how little. If you run away from it, you will leave the country for people who you feel do not do it right to continue doing it, and there'll really be no change.
Okay, so we'll just quickly wrap up with this. A lot of times when citizens call out their leaders, you know, in Nigeria we have leaders who are quite of age, and when citizens call out their leaders, they're tagged being rude or being overly explosive. Do you still think that we should consider culture when calling out our leaders?
The thing is, there are certain cultures that impede and harm growth. And we have to come to a time and age where it's not everything that has to do with culture that has to be correct. But for me, calling them out and doing it in a very democratic and civil matter is in a civil way is very key. The way with which you call them out, you know, but you have to call out what is wrong, and that is the only way to hold them accountable. So selling the narrative of, no, it's not part of our culture, would not take us anywhere, and I think it is a part of the culture that we have to just dead it.
So we should dead it.
Yes.
We should kill it to death.
Yes.
Okay.
How would we make them accountable?
All right. That's Aisha Salisu, a public affairs analyst. And then she's taking us through citizens' participation in the election campaigns. It is the election campaigns. You've heard so much from her. Be civil, be precise, shun ethnicity, shun vote buying. Because whatever decision we'll make will tell on you in the next 4 or 8 years. So think wisely and do not sell your conscience. Okay,